What's going on, everybody? So one of the ways I've always been wired is I'll see something that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and then I try to figure out why is it the way that it is. If it doesn't look the way I expect it to look, and whether that means doing research or data or whatever, I have no problem doing any sort of research or data or math to figure something out. I just like to try to figure out why something that looks different than I expected is the way that it is. Recently, I was on Mike Moynihan's podcast, which through Bench Clear Media, his Bench Clear Media channel, and we were talking about cards from the 1950s. And one of the things that came up in the conversation was how a lot of players whose cards seemed to be undervalued before the pandemic really shot up during the pandemic. And some of the players that, we were talking about where that happened were Roberto Clemente, were Jackie Robinson, and a couple of others, Willie Mays to a certain extent, but not quite as much as Clemente and Jackie Robinson. And those two really shot up. And I asked Mike why he thought that was. Why were those cards depressed in value compared to where they are now? Why did they suddenly shoot up? So I don't want to paraphrase what Mike said. So let's take a look. I'm going to show you the clip from that kind of exchange and hear what Mike had to say about that.
It's hard to argue. Again, Clemente has become he's one of those guys that through the COVID boom got a lot of popularity hobby-wide. Jackie, Clemente, Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, a lot of those guys really took off. It became more even across the vintage spectrum, I would say, instead of being very mantle heavy or Yankee heavy. It feels like, wow, all these other guys are pretty great. And Clemente cards were one of those that benefited from that boom.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that happened at that time?
I think that people go, okay, mantle's too expensive. Who's next? Mm-hmm. And who is maybe underappreciated in the hobby? And I think a groundswell of support and just influence. And oh yeah, what about Jackie Robinson? What about Roberto Clemente? Like, these guys were really important. Why aren't their cards? Why is mantle stuff twice as much for the same year, or whatever the ratio is? It makes no sense. So I just think there was just a realization, almost an epiphany in the hobby, like, whoa, all these other people are pretty great.
Yeah.
That would make the most sense to me.
So what'd you think of that? I thought that was interesting. I don't think either of us know why suddenly these cards shot up in value. I think Mike's kind of hypothesis of, well, they were kind of always underappreciated and undervalued, and now they're kind of more in line with where they should be, I think is probably accurate. But the question is, why were they undervalued to begin with, and what is the trigger that made them go up at the time that they did? So one of the things I'm always doing is I'm always looking and noticing and going, that seems weird. Well, one of the things to me that I'm always looking for what's weird is who else is undervalued. And are they undervalued for a reason, or are they undervalued forever? Or is there going to be some spark? Is there going to be something that happens where suddenly people will go, these are really undervalued, and they'll start buying them up? Because if they're going to start buying them up and the value is going to shoot up like Clemente has done over the past few years, and like Jackie Robinson has done over the last few years, it would be nice to know before, right? Now, again, this is not an investment channel. I'm not suggesting you should cash out your life savings and invest it in anything I'm talking about. I'm just having conversation. I'm just throwing around ideas. But it does seem to me like there's a position that is long underappreciated, and severely undervalued. If you're starting a football team and you could start your team, you're probably going to take a really good quarterback. And the reason you're going to take a really good quarterback is because having a really good quarterback is sort of like the foundation of every good team, right? If you were to start a basketball team and you wanted to, start with the foundation on the basketball team, you're probably going to pick a ball dominant scorer, right? You're going to pick a Kobe, a Jordan, a LeBron, a Steph, a Luka, one of these guys who has the ball, brings it up the court, and everything runs through them. Makes sense. Well, if you are going to start a baseball team, what would you want to start with? Would you say, I'm starting a baseball team. I really need a right fielder. Maybe. I really need a second baseman. Possibly. I think most championship teams, most teams that we think about, most dynasties, when we look back, they all had an ace pitcher. Most World Series teams, champions, and most baseball dynasties had an ace or two on their staff. And I think that's one of the reasons that some of the highest paid players in baseball are ace pitchers, because they're that important. There are some eras where the pitchers, their cards are on par with hitters. There are some eras where the pitchers' cards are significantly less than the hitters of that time. If you take the elite pitchers of an era and the elite hitters of an era, in a lot of the eras, sometimes the pitchers even more. Now, there are anomalies. There are Babe Ruths, right? There are Mickey Mantles, where they have this kind of lure that's larger than life. But I'm talking about, let's not include the anomalies for a second. Let's not include the Mickey Mantles or the Babe Ruths for just a second. There is an era where I think the pitchers are severely underpriced compared to the hitters of that era. So I'm going to go through a few eras right now with you. And I want to take a look at what do the elite pitchers cards from that era cost compared to the hitters. And let's go era by era. And then let's look at the era where for some reason the values are way lower for the pitchers than the hitters. I think this is interesting. Now, will those pitcher values ever shoot up? Maybe. I did a video on Tuesday with my new series where I'm doing this thing where I'm asking everybody a question and then people are responding, and then I'm waiting a little while and then I'm reviewing some of the responses and talking about some of the people's answers. And the question this week is, in 10 years, what do you think is going to shoot up the most? And so far, after a few days, one of the things that's come up a few times is I think pitchers' cards are going to go up in value because they're really low right now. Now, again, this is not an investment channel. This is not financial advice. This is like talk radio. This is an opinion. What do you think? So let's look at the data. Let's look at some eras. Let's look at what the cards of the pitchers cost from those eras compared to the hitters from those eras. And let's see if we have some common themes, ideas, beliefs, or what you think. I think it's interesting. Check it out.
All right, so let's start off with the T206 set. With so many different sets and so many different values of sets, we almost have to, in the pre-war stuff, look at set by set. So a Ty Cobb red portrait background T206 sells for about $7,300, or at least this one did. Now, every card I'm going to show you here is in the same grade, which is a 3. And most of them are PSA unless there wasn't a PSA available, just to keep consistent. So here is a Walter Johnson portrait, T206. And this one sold for $4,250. So the Ty Cobb sold for a fair amount more than Walter Johnson. But we don't want to look at just one hitter against one pitcher. So I thought it would be good to look at a few per era or set in this case. The next card is one of Cy Young's cards. He's got a few in the T206 set, and in this one, it sold for $3,263.25 recently in a 3. So I'm starting with the highest priced one and working my way to the lowest of the cards in each comparison. And then we'll kind of look at a summary afterwards to get an idea of any trends. The fourth card is a Christy Mathewson T206. This is his portrait. He's got 3. He's got a white cap and a brown cap as well. And $2,650 is what this recently sold for in a 3. So the first 4 cards, by far the most expensive was the Ty Cobb. And then we went Walter Johnson, then Cy Young, then Christy Mathewson. So we went hitter, then pitcher, pitcher, pitcher. Next card is Tris Speaker in the 3. Now, this is actually Tris Speaker's rookie card. And it sold for $1,700. So the Tris Speaker, who a lot of people put in the top 20 players of all time, his rookie card in the T206 set is less than Walter Johnson, Cy Young, or Christy Mathewson, even though this is his only card, and each of them have several. And then we've got the Nap Lajoie, also in a 3. Now, I couldn't find this one in a PSA. I could only find it in an SGC. And it was a best offer at $1,595. So we'll just call it $1,595, even though it was certainly probably a little less than that. Well, maybe $1,500 or so. So of the 6 cards in the T206 set that we're looking at here, we've got a comparison. So first we'll look at the hitters on the left, and then we'll compare it and see how it looks to the pitchers, which are on the right. So the Ty Cobb, again, was $7,300. The Tris Speaker, $1,700. And then the Lajoie, just under $1,600. Now, the green represents cards that were in the top half of the cards we're looking at, and the green in the bottom half. So in this particular case, the highest priced card was the Cobb, and then it went Walter Johnson, then Cy Young, then Christy Mathewson, then Tris Speaker, then Nap Lajoie. So of the top 3, the top half, 2 of them were pitchers, 1 was a hitter, and then the 4th place one was also a pitcher. So, Ty Cobb is sort of this iconic guy who, everyone wants a Ty Cobb card. But other than Ty Cobb, pitchers had the highest value there. So the next comparison, again, we're going to do another set here. And we're looking at the 33 Goudies. So we got Lou Gehrig, who's a little bit of an anomaly. He's kind of got a cult following, as he should, with all of the story to him. His card in the 33 Goudie in a PSA 3 sold for $4,500. Now, I kind of just set the parameters, the filters in eBay of the highest selling card down in a 3 holder. The next highest was a Dizzy Dean in a 3 that sold for about $1,350. So there's some big cards in this set. There's, some Mel Otts, some Jimmy Foxes. There are, Lefty Grove. Speaking of Mel Ott, the 3rd card here is a Mel Ott. He's got 2 cards in this set. This is my favorite of the 2. And this one in a 3 sold for $859. So this is the green background. He's kind of got that tough guy look. So here, so far, we've gone hitter, then pitcher, then hitter. And by far the most expensive was the Gehrig. And then the next one is a hitter. So we have another hitter here. So we've got Hack Wilson. And the Hack Wilson sold for $736 in a 3. Hack Wilson has an incredible number of RBIs in a season. He's had 180 or something RBIs in one season one year. And that's over again for $736 for the Hack Wilson in the 3. And then we got Lefty Grove. And some of you are saying, what about Jimmy Fox? There was a Jimmy Fox that was right in the same range. But because it was Jimmy Fox's rookie card, it did feel like it was cheating a little bit, but I wanted the top 3 pitchers and the top 3 hitters from the 33 Gaudy set, and the Jimmy Fox easily could have been included. It's right there with the Ott and the Hack Wilson. So we've got Carl Hubble here and Lefty Grove. The Grove we just looked at was about $750. And then the Carl Hubble in a 3 is $430. So in this case, we went hitter, then pitcher, then hitter, pitcher. So here, the hitters are a little bit ahead of the pitchers. Now, if you were to throw out the Lou Gehrig anomaly, and again, I didn't include Ruth here, even though he has a Gaudy card, just because, again, Ruth and Mantle, they're outliers that throw everything off, and you could say the same about Gehrig. So when we look at the hitters here versus the pitchers, clearly Gehrig's the highest, but after that, everything's somewhat comparable. And again, the Jimmy Fox would be right in there in the same range as like the Ott. And so again, Dizzy Dean is number 2. So we again went hitter, pitcher, hitter, pitcher. And then we've got the next little era we're going to look at is from the late 60s to early 70s. So we've got the 67 Tom Seaver. The 67 Tom Seaver, representing the late 60s, is $800, just over $800 for his rookie card in a 3. Man, that's an expensive card. It is a high number, which is certainly part of it. And then we've got the Nolan Ryan. And the Nolan Ryan is, this one sold for $568. So far we've gone pitcher. So again, the T206s pitchers were 3 of the top 4. And then in the Gaudis, the pitcher was number 2, and then 5 and 6. Here we go pitcher, and then the third card is a hitter. Rod Carew, also a high number, is the first hitter from the late 60, early 70 era. And his rookie card in a 3 sold for $273 recently. And then we got another hitter. We got Reggie Jackson. So the Reggie Jackson 1969 tops in a 3 recently sold for $140. So far and away, the 2 most expensive cards in this era are the 2 pitchers. And then we go hitter, and then we go hitter again with Johnny Bench. So again, we're talking, 67 and after. The Johnny Bench rookie card is about a $120 card. Now, I thought it'd be fun to do things this way because, again, it gives us a chance to kind of see what some of these cool cards go for in a 3. And then Jim Palmer, quite possibly the most overlooked player card, maybe. I mean, it's him and Frank Robinson, in my opinion. If you look at Palmer's stats, you'd be shocked at just how dominating he was. And his rookie card in a 3 is $43, which is unbelievable. So, again, so this is from about 66 to 75. You could really call it about 66 to 70. But it's really the late 60s, early 70s. And we've got the hitters. Carew was third, Reggie Jackson fourth, and Bench fifth. And then, Carew the only one in the top half. And then we got the pitchers. We got Tom Seaver, Nolan Ryan are far and away 1 and 2. And you're like, well, that's because they were all-time greats. Well, that's true. But Reggie Jackson and Rod Carew are all-time greats, and Johnny Bench is the best pitcher of all time, or catcher of all time. And then far and away the least is the Palmer. So let's now look at the late 40s to early 60s. So the most expensive card in the group, again, we're not including Mantle. And I tried to go with rookie cards here since it's a variety of years. So when we were doing the Goudies and the T206s, it was just the same year. Now we're going rookie cards. So the Willie Mays rookie card sold for about $8,800 in a 3. And then the next most expensive hitter from the late 40s to mid 60s is the Hank Aaron rookie card in a 3 for $2,600. So again, we go Mays and then Aaron. And you say, well, they're 2 of the all-time best hitters. Well, sure, of course they are. And that's why they're expensive. So then we got the Roberto Clemente. The Roberto Clemente in a 3. Another very expensive card. And our third straight hitter. His rookie card in a 3 sold for $2,052. So again, when we're looking at the late 60s, we had a couple of pitchers at the top of the list. When we were looking at the T206s, we went pitcher number 2, 3, and 4. When we were looking at the Goudies, we had a pitcher number 2. So then we got Ernie Banks. We got another hitter. You know I love this card. In the 3, it sold for $1,250 in the PSA 3 recently. So now we've gone 4 straight hitters in a row. So what's the next one from the late 40s to mid 60s? So it's another hitter. It's Pete Rose. The Pete Rose in a 3. Another very popular iconic card. And that one sold for $1,086. So far in this era, even though we've got some of the all-time greatest pitchers, arguably maybe the 2 best ever, we've gone 5 straight hitters. So finally we've got a pitcher. We've got Sandy Koufax, who some people would say had the most dominating stretch ever as a pitcher. Short career, but dominating career. Sold for $1,056. So we went the first 5 hitters, finally a pitcher, and now back to another hitter. We got the Stan Musial, 48 Bowman. And in the 3, this one's $930. So now we've looked at, 7 cards from this stretch, 7 rookie cards of some of the all-time great Hall of Famers. All these guys are top 100 players of all time. And we had 6 out of 7 were hitters. And now we finally get another pitcher. We got Bob Gibson, who, by the way, this is also a high number, drops way down to $550. So when we were looking at those hitters, they were all way more than a Bob Gibson rookie card, which is a high number in the 59 set. And, if you were going to give the ball to one pitcher in Game 7 of the World Series, I'd have a hard time not choosing Bob Gibson to be my guy. Then we got a Whitey Ford. Whitey Ford was a dominant. Some people say, it's Whitey Ford. It's not like the best. Well, we just looked at 2 of the best, Gibson and Koufax. My dad always talks about how Casey Stengel would save Whitey Ford to pitch against the other team's ace. And even though his win percentage is unbelievable, how much better would it have been if they didn't just hold him out, or Casey Stengel didn't hold him out to pitch against the other team's ace? And his rookie card was about $540. So now we have another hitter. This is going to be the last hitter we're going to look at, Al Kaline. And his rookie in a 3 is $450. Guy won a batting title at like the age of 19. Has a really cool looking rookie card. Now we go to Warren Spahn, one of the top left-handed pitchers ever. So what do you think Warren Spahn's rookie card goes for? And some people say, well, the 48-49 Leaf is actually his rookie card. It might be his most preferred card, but this is his rookie card. That Leaf set was printed in 49. So the Spahn is $252.76. About half of what Kaline was. How about Don Drysdale? Another pitcher who had some dominating seasons. Came up huge in World Series. And a PSA 3 of his rookie card recently sold for $114. So, again, we had a lot of hitters at the top, and now we're going to have a lot of pitchers at the bottom. So the next up, we got Juan Marichal, who was probably the most dominant pitcher over the decade of the 60s, if you look at his stats. And his rookie card in a 3, $114. That's unbelievable. Drysdale and Marichal, you could buy both of them for well under $300 for both of them in 3s, which is wild to me. And then we got Steve Carlton. Steve Carlton has the 1965 rookie card, and that one's under $100. Another guy in the argument for the best left-handed pitcher of all time. $98.95. So, lots of hitters at the top of the list. Lots of pitchers at the bottom of the list, even though they're some of the all-time best pitchers. So if we're looking from like 48 to 65, sort of that golden age, that golden era of baseball. Hitters, we go Mays, Aaron, Clemente, Banks, Rose, Musial. 7 of the 8 hitters are in the top half of the prices in this comparison, which is amazing. Out of the 16, 7 of the 16 are hitters. Only Sandy Koufax is in the top half, and he's number 6. So, Sandy Koufax's rookie is only more expensive than 2 of the hitters. Stan Musial, who's underappreciated in my opinion, and Al Kaline. But then you go Gibson, Ford, Spahn. You might be thinking, what is this guy talking about? We just looked at a bunch of cards from the T206 set, and then the Gowdy set, and then some late 60 rookie cards, and then some, rookie cards from the late 40s to early 60s. What's your point, Greg? Well, here's my point. If we look back at the T206 era, we'll call it an era. Again, I wanted to keep the sets consistent because the demand and the prices of the sets can jump around a lot. 3 of the top 4 cards were pitchers. The 5th and the 6th card were hitters, even though the Trish Speaker was a rookie card, and none of the others were. And then we went to the Gowdy set. And in the Gowdy set, we had Lou Gehrig, which is clearly the most expensive. And then we go pitcher with Dizzy Dean. And usually the Lefty Grove is pretty high too. I'm not sure why that one sold for less. And then, I could have included Jimmy Fox, but Jimmy Fox, Mel Ott, and you look at those guys, and Hack Wilson, and you look at those guys, and, they're a little bit more than pitchers, but not much. They're all, other than Lou Gehrig, they're all kind of in the same kind of range for the most part. The Carl Hubble was a little bit less, but... And so in the early pre-war cards, the observation is, well, yeah, we've got pitchers cards are very comparable with the value of hitters cards. And then we look at the late 60s and we look at some rookie cards. And we go, well, far and away, Seaver's the most expensive. And then far and away number 2 is Nolan Ryan. And then we drop down a lot before we get to Carew, right, and Reggie Jackson. And it's like, so in that era, the pitchers are a little bit more. And again, the argument is, well, those are some of the best pitchers, the most popular pitchers of all time. Well, sure, but I mean, can't we say that about all these guys? I didn't pick a bunch of borderline Hall of Famers or 2-time All-Stars. These are all of the top players of all time. But then when we look at that kind of golden age, that golden era of baseball, from the late 40s, after World War II, all the way to the mid to early 60s, it's heavily dominated with hitters. Heavily dominated with hitters. Right? I mean, 7 of the top 8 out of the 16 that we looked at were hitters. I mean, Bob Gibson isn't in the top half, and his rookie card's a high number, and it's not even close. Whitey Ford's card is from the iconic 51 Bowman set. Again, back to what my dad's always saying about Whitey Ford, his win percentage, his win total would have been so much more if Casey Stengel wouldn't have held him out to always pitch against the other team's ace. The year after Stengel left, he had like 25 wins or something. I mean, he had an unbelievable season, and a lot of people think that's because he wasn't pitching against the other team's ace all the time. But look up Whitey Ford's win-loss record. It's unbelievable. He has just over 100 losses, like 110 or something. And he's got well over 200 wins. It's crazy. Now, I know somebody's going to fact check me, and I'm sure that's off, but you can go ahead and tell me in the comments how I screwed that up. The point being, he's an all-time great pitcher. He's an all-time great left-handed pitcher. And we're not even at Warren Spahn yet. We've got Juan Marichal, who was dominating in the 60s. 100 and something bucks. Don Drysdale, because some people say, well, it's about the market that they played for. Don Drysdale, pretty big market. Pretty big markets, right? That he played in. His rookie card's like cheap. It's only Sandy Koufax, and even Sandy Koufax is way less than a bunch of the hitters. So what's my point? My point is that some of the all-time great pitchers are way too cheap. Will they ever catch up? I don't know. One of the biggest criticisms people say about me and my channel is that someday I'll realize it's not about how good somebody was. It's about how popular they were. And that's fair, because I do look at stats a lot. But Whitey Ford, to Yankee fans, is very popular. Bob Gibson, to Cardinal fans, is very popular. Juan Marichal, to Giants fans, very popular. And those aren't tiny markets. They're pretty decent sized markets. And Steve Carlton, I mean, the knock would be that it's kind of not the great looking card and it's a multiplayer card. But what about P. Rose? I mean, P. Rose's rookie card's kind of awful looking. And there's 4 guys on it.
and all you see is kind of his floating head there. I think pitchers from the golden era of baseball are underappreciated, and they're cheap. And I think that they're a good buy. Is this investment advice? No. It's just an observation. Let me know what you think.